Imagine you wake up tomorrow and someone has deleted every post you've ever made online. Every opinion, every retweet, every carefully crafted take on politics, culture, or philosophy, gone. How much of you just disappeared? If that question makes you slightly uncomfortable, you're already feeling the problem we're going to explore today. Because somewhere between the first social media account you created and the person you are right now, something strange happened. Your beliefs stopped being things you hold and started being things you are. Your ideology became your identity. And once that fusion happens, disagreeing with your ideas doesn't feel like an intellectual challenge anymore. It feels like a personal attack. If you've ever wondered why online conversations feel more like battles for survival than exchanges of ideas, stay with me. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why that happens, and more importantly, what to do about it. To understand this fusion, we need to go back to the mid-20th century and a philosopher who was watching something terrifying unfold in real time. Erich Fromm was a German-American thinker writing in the shadow of fascism, trying to answer one of the most disturbing questions of his era: why do people willingly surrender their freedom? In his landmark work from 1941, Fromm argued that modern individuals, cut loose from the traditional structures of religion, community, and fixed social roles, experience something he called the burden of freedom. We are free, yes, but freedom without belonging is unbearable. And so rather than face the anxiety of being a self that has to be constructed from scratch, people escape into larger identities. They merge with a movement, an ideology, a group. They stop thinking with their beliefs and start thinking as their beliefs. Fromm wasn't describing weak people. He was describing a structural tendency of the modern psyche, and he had no idea that 7 decades later, we would build the most powerful engine for this kind of fusion that human history had ever seen. If you're the kind of person who finds these questions urgent, subscribing to this channel means you'll never miss a video where philosophy meets the problems we're actually living through right now. Here's how the fusion works in practice. You sign up for a platform. At first, you share things you find interesting. An article, a meme, a reaction. The algorithm watches. It notices what gets you engagement, what makes people respond. Gradually, without anyone deciding it consciously, your feed becomes a mirror. It reflects back a very particular version of you, the one that gets the most approval, and approval, as every human nervous system knows, feels like safety. Now here's where it gets philosophically dense. The philosopher Paul Ricoeur distinguished between two kinds of identity. There's idem, identity, the stable, persistent self, the one that stays the same across time like your name or your body. And then there's ipse identity, the narrative self, the story you tell about who you are and what you stand for. Social media doesn't touch your idem's identity, but it colonizes your ipse identity completely. It becomes the primary place where your narrative self is constructed, performed, and in a crucially defended. Think about the last time someone online challenged a belief you hold strongly. Notice what happened in your body: a slight tightening, a heat behind the eyes, the urge to respond immediately. That's not just defensiveness about an idea, that's the threat response of an organism protecting its sense of self. Because when your ideology becomes your identity, an attack on what you believe is an attack on who you are. And your brain treats both threats with the same neurological seriousness. But not everyone agrees that this fusion is purely a problem. Some philosophers would push back hard on what we're describing. Hannah Arendt, for example, believed deeply in the political nature of human beings. For Arendt, appearing in public space, taking positions, staking out a place in the world of shared opinion, this is identity. To be political is to be present. From her perspective, the person who refuses to tie their identity to any ideology is not a freer self. They are a ghost. Then there's the communitarian tradition, thinkers like Charles Taylor and Alasdair MacIntyre, who argue that the liberal dream of a self prior to its commitments is a fantasy. We are always already embedded in traditions, communities, narratives. Your values don't float freely above your identity. They are woven into it. The real tension isn't between identity and ideology. It's between an identity that chooses its commitments with awareness and one that absorbs them through algorithmic conditioning without ever noticing the difference. So what do you actually do with this today? The answer isn't to stop having opinions, and it isn't to leave social media in some dramatic act of philosophical purity. The answer is what Fromm himself pointed toward: the cultivation of what he called productive love of self. Not narcissism, but a genuine, stable relationship with your own interiority that doesn't depend on external validation to survive. In practical terms, this means building what we might call ideological distance. Try this. Before you share a political or cultural opinion online, ask yourself one question. Fine, if I discovered tomorrow that this belief was wrong, would I be able to update it, or would that feel like losing a piece of who I am? If the answer is the latter, that's not a conviction. That's a defense mechanism. It also means consuming ideas that challenge you, not to become ideologically neutral, but to keep your beliefs from calcifying into identity armor. The goal isn't a self without commitments. The goal is a self that holds its commitments with open hands. Here's what I want to leave you with. The philosopher you most disagree with today might be doing something essential for you, reminding you that you are bigger than your ideology, that the self is not a flag to be planted and defended. It's something more like a river. It has a direction, a character, a force. But it moves, it changes, it remains itself precisely because it doesn't freeze. So, the next time you feel that heat rising in your chest during an online argument, pause for just 1 second and ask yourself, am I defending an idea, or am I defending a story about who I am? And if it's the second one, what would it mean to let that story breathe? Keep exploring that question with us.